Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Joel Elston here. Today is Thursday, April the 12th, 2018, 8 a.m. Eastern Time, your first daily dose of happy for the day. And Joel, we welcome you back after a week away in the sun and the fun. I mean, I feel a little jealous, I have to say. I'm a little bit jealous, but I'm so glad you had that trip. It sounds like it was wonderful.
We had a great time. Every time I return to that area, as we were talking before the show, it feels like I have the option of just sort of recharging. Not that I'm ever low on battery, but it just feels like everything feels so fresh upon my return. And we had a great trip. My son, we fished a lot, and in reality, it was just one of those things. Those moments you just cherish, and it was great. So it was good to be there. It's good to be back.
That's good. Yeah, I'm glad you got away like that. I know that's your favorite spot to go to, and I know you've also hinted that that's a place you'd like to move back to at some point, or maybe find a house near that beach, or near where the bench is. Is that something you still harbor in the back of your mind?
Yeah. Well, it is one of the things I like to keep open. I love where I'm at now. Life's going very well here, and especially having Justin. For our audience members that may be new, I adopted Justin. He's been in foster care with me for about 2 years ago, and then I adopted him in December. So he's here and he's comfortable. He's in school, so that's a factor. Okay. Even though if I asked him, he would just say, "Let's pack up and leave tomorrow." But the truth is, we have an incredible support network here. So I'm not going to make any rash decisions, but I am open to that concept one day. I do love that area.
Okay, all right. Well, that's fair enough. That's good. So, yeah, this has been a good time. I mean, Cindy sat in for you last week, and she did a great job. It was just great because normally I get her 2 mornings a week, and last week it was 3 mornings. So while I missed having you around, hey, I got to have 3 shows with her, so that was good. But it's great to have you back. It's wonderful to have you back.
Well, I appreciate it. And I'm, the great thing about what we have going now, if one of us is out, we have such an incredible group of co-hosts that they'll pick up the ball for you. It's no problem at all. There's no loss there whatsoever.
Absolutely,
I love that.
Oh yeah, I love that too. It makes it really good. And I also want to report that something I've talked about the last couple shows, this new aspect I've discovered about the mirror exercises, the mirror work that I've been doing. I am on, let's see, which day is this? I'm on day 54 of doing this thing. And around day 30, my original goal was to get rid of the little voice in the back of the head, the negative self-talk that keeps piping up and chirping at you all the time, because it had been chirping at me for decades. And I'd heard that Jack Canfield used mirror work in order to do that, and that it happened after about 30 days that it went away. So I said, okay, well, if Jack says that, I mean, I trust him a lot, so I'll give it a shot. And sure enough, I got rid of it. Well, then after I got rid of it, the next thing was, well, I wonder what else it'll do. And so I figured I'll just keep going, I'll just keep going. Maybe I can go for a year and see what happens. And around day 52, 53, I can't remember which it was, so a couple days ago, I had a difficult day the previous day. Not the whole day, but there was one little section of the day that was pretty difficult. And it stuck with me. It was one of those things, those gnawing piece of resistance, like bad feeling things, that just wouldn't go away. And I woke up the next morning, and you know how it is when you wake up, that's your best opportunity, right, to get yourself into that great frame of mind and get going for the day and, get yourself off to a good start. I couldn't do it that morning. I just couldn't get myself there. So I said, well, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I got up, dressed, and one of the first things I do every day is the mirror exercise. So I went to do the mirror exercise. Now, normally that's like 30 to 45 seconds. That's about all I usually spend on it.
Right.
I found myself talking to myself, basically giving myself a pep talk, telling myself how much I appreciated myself, all that thing, for about 3 or 4 minutes. And while I was doing it, I was noticing that resistance, that feeling of tenseness, that uncomfortable feeling was shifting in me, and it was fading. And by the time I was done, it was almost completely gone. I said, whoa, what just happened? Because I've never been able to do that on my own before. But now all of a sudden, this mirror exercise I was doing, where I was basically appreciating myself looking in the mirror, was helping to release this resistance in a way I'd never done before. So I've been doing it since then, And every morning I've been like going at it with a different angle and experimenting with things. And I can't say I've got the whole thing figured out yet, but this for me is a big breakthrough. I'm really excited about it. And it may be something that other people can use too. I don't know how universal it's going to be, but I'm hopeful that it might be.
Well, and one of the things that I really have great respect in what you've identified this as clearly an issue in life for you, this resistance. And while you have great knowledge of the law of attraction and how it applies, you also see your resistance. So the fact that the mirror work is effective for you, it is works almost for anything you want to use. And and I think it applies to everyone. One of the concepts that my dear friend and mentor, Dr. Sherman Master, believes is what works is what you believe works. And
True.
The idea that and he doesn't say this in the sense of trying to discourage anyone from trying things, but he says it in a way of whatever you believe is what's going to work. That's, whether it's tapping, like Wayne Dreyer used to, that advocated before his passing,
right.
Whether it's, rapid eye movement for trauma, the process is what you believe it is. And so the fact that you're using that, and if it's an effective tool for you, it's going to be effective up and down. And it is. So I'm not saying it in a sense of, oh, well, it's just in your head. Yes, it is in your head. Thank goodness, because that's where the action is. You do believe it's going to work. It's in a very effective, and anybody that believes in it and really trusts in that, it really does work, because that's where the healing or the change happens, is what you believe.
And that belief is really the key, the core of it all. And it actually led me to the creation of today's topic, because, I mean, you have often posted on all the different things that people bring up, where they're complaining about stuff or whatever. So there's the complaint side, and there's the excuses side, and there's the blame side and all that. And all that is really important stuff. But it also made me think for a second, what's the happy side? I mean, it's easy for us to pick, okay, I don't really want to blame anybody. I don't want to make excuses for everything. It's up to me. I am in power. I have control. And it's not something where I want to, hold other people responsible. I don't want to get involved in the blame game. I don't want to get involved in any of that stuff. But how do I pick happy? How do I get to happy? How do I turn my life into a happy life? Because it isn't enough to say, I don't want that. I got to pick what I want, don't I?
Absolutely. And that's that answer that I'm just so excited for you to see is all of this, and this, it takes away the excuses. It takes away everything else when you understand this is up to you. And that's what by finding the conduit to that, to where it is up to you. You get to pick that life you want. You get to pick it. Everything that we have today is a product of us. We are the architect of our situation today. Nobody else. A chain of events happened that we brought about. And the same power that brought that about exists in us to change it to what we want. And that's what you're implementing right now. That's what's exciting.
It is exciting, and it's fun, and it's different. It's also challenging because we're not used to thinking this way. I mean, I don't remember which of the co-hosts I was talking about this with the last couple of days, but one of the most challenging things you can, I think it was with Cindy, one of the most challenging things you can ask somebody, particularly somebody who is like an activist on some issue, or someone who is really advocating for some kind of major change or something like that, they can always tell you what they're against. But if you want to stump them, ask them to tell you what it is that they favor without saying and making any reference to what it is they're against. And you get a lot of flapping, empty, quiet mouths that are just like, Why is that? Why do we have so much trouble with that?
That is such a relevant point. Yeah, Mother Teresa, back in the tumultuous 60s, Vietnam War stuff, was asked why she did not participate in the anti-war stuff.
Yeah.
And she said, when you have a pro-peace march, I will be involved. I am not anti-war. I am pro-peace, because what you're against is what you're attracting. Mm-hmm. And it's that concept of the law of attraction. It's so easy to say what you don't want. In fact, one of the most difficult things when I sit down with people and say, well, what do you want? Tell me what you want. Well, everybody says, I want to be happy. Okay, well, what is that? And that's dead on the topic today, because what is happy?
Exactly.
And so, when you think about it, what is happy? And that becomes the question or the answer to what you're attracting when you're putting out to the universe this nebulous happy, and your behavior is, I want happy and I'm very anxious about being happy. Well, the universe is saying, so, okay, happy must mean anxious. So let's give you more anxious or resistant. That's what it picks up on, versus having a specific, what is happy to you? I often post, and a lot of people think it's counterintuitive to what we're trying to do, but I often post with really often about the concept that happiness to me is not about being comfortable. Happiness to me is about moving forward and experiencing, and I love to learn new things. For me, comfort is a dangerous place. So everybody's happiness, a lot of people think happiness is no stress or no pressure, and you don't have to worry about anything. Well, that's already available if you realize it. Happiness is not a concept of a place. Happiness is already inside of you. Revealing your happiness is step one. You do that, and then the rest of the stuff falls into place. So understanding that the happiness is, there's people in horrible situations that can blink their eyes and all demand that they're happy, and they can be happy. It's the idea that when a certain event is going to happen, then I will have the ability to be happy. And that's where everybody gets it wrong. So by doing the mirror work that you're able to do, the resistance that you're putting there, it is nothing but a habit or a preconditioned response that you've done forever. So getting rid of that resistance is already gone. The mirror work's allowing you to see that in a direct way. You're able to look at, come from a place of gratitude, looking at where you're at, loving where you're at, appreciating where you're at is what breaks that resistance down, because the idea that we get so desperate for something, the desperation is what's being picked up. And that's the opposite of happiness. In my mind, desperation is not happy.
No, I agree with that. You made an interesting comment there that directly relevant to me, though, that when I was doing the mirror work was reflecting what had already happened, that I had already let go of the resistance. And yet, from my perspective, the way it seemed to me, when I started doing the mirror work that morning, I felt like I was already holding the resistance. It was still there. And it felt like during the process I was releasing it. But you're suggesting I'd released it before I even got to the mirror. And I'm trying to reconcile that. How do I reconcile that?
Yes, and well, it's sort of that concept of, we're already wealthy. You just have to accept the wealth. You're already released it. You just got to accept it's been released.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
It's that same. What your reality is simply your perspective. So once you're looking in the mirror, and this gets into some crazy theories. And I don't want to scare our audience, so I'm not going to get too deep. But the concept of quantum theory, that time it isn't just something that's stuck rigid going forward. You retroactively can release resistance, and I don't, that we can get very confused in that conversation. So I don't run anybody off with that. But that the idea that once you realize you're already having abundance, it's your recognition of the abundance and living the abundance that will invite more abundance. It's when you're living in that negative other stuff, it's whatever your individual issue is, has already been resolved when you accept it being resolved.
So, okay. Yeah, and I understand why you don't want to go down rabbit holes, although I have to say lately with all the co-hosts, we've gone down a lot of rabbit holes lately, and it does get pretty crazy. But I also get the sense what you're really saying is you've been doing this metaphysical doctorate study that you've been doing, and you explored whole new sets of rabbit holes, and there's probably more than you want to bring in.
Well, what I find happens, well, there's certain subjects that I don't want to, early in my law of attraction work, the more, what I love about the book, The Secret, is I think it's a very nice remedial entrance into the law of attraction. Mm-hmm. She was brilliant in her delivery. I don't think it is remotely near a comprehensive view of the law of attraction. It isn't.
Right.
But it's a wonderful introduction you can only accept this at the level that you can accept it. And when we go to, at least in my experience, when I start sharing where all that stuff that gets very deep, people tend to get run off. They say, okay, now we've crossed the threshold. Now we've gotten crazy. And I don't want anybody to realize it, because it's as simple or as complicated as you want it to be. And when you get into theories that people, okay, now they're way off the deep end, here's what they're talking about. It's like, the not picking on any one religion or anything, but the Mormons, for example, have sort of a protective underwear that they wear. And when you look at not making fun, but when you look at their religion, well, that makes a lot of sense until you get to the protective underwear. It's like, okay, wait a minute. Now, it's not quite that, but it is something that you look at something, and then when you hear something that just automatically goes against it. So when I present that, but on a basic level, the past only has as much power as you allow. And by you historically having resistance, that has been your big thing that hasn't allowed you to click this. So once you go backwards and say, or at least present time say, I'm stopping this now, and the resistance never really existed at all. It was a perception that I have. I'm the one that placed it there, and I'm the one that can take it away. And that's a huge way to look at it. And you're doing, I just have witnessed just in our personal relationship over the years of where you have just, one particular moment in time, it seems like you just decided, I'm going to totally flip this upside down and do the opposite of what I've been doing, and not overthink it, and not overplan it, and not get 58 spreadsheets and create all these other things. You just went and did something. And that was a big change in your life. And I think right now when you're doing the mirror work and that resistance, because you're never negative, but there is been this thing of this internal fight. And I think everybody, including me, that is a practitioner of the law of attraction, has a feeling at times that the resistance can come in the most unlikely forms. And that's what the mirror work's allowing you to get that connection with the person. When you're looking in the mirror, you're looking at the person in charge of the resistance. You're not looking out at a nebulous thing. That's what I love about mirror work. The person responsible is that person in the mirror.
Yeah, that's true. And in fact, I was noticing that in a way this morning when I was doing my mirror work, because I noticed that, what I was doing today? Today, I was trying to coach myself in a sense, to like urge myself, convince myself to let go of certain things that I've been wanting to let go of for quite some time. And they mostly had to do with not trying to get involved in what anybody else is thinking or doing, and simply just stay involved with what I'm thinking and doing, and just stay in my space, because I'm always happier when I do that anyway. So why am I setting myself up? So I was trying to urge myself, let's just stay in my own space today. This is a good thing to do. Stay in my own space. Stay with the things that are important to me. You don't need to worry about other people. They're taking care of themselves. They're fine. They know how to deal with their own stuff. And if they don't, they can always listen to the podcast. But the point is, if I'm focusing on myself, if I'm focusing on, here's what I need to do for me, here's what I need to feel good about, here's what I want to attract. In fact, that's what I spent a large portion of my mirror work today doing, was just talking to myself about what it is I really want to attract into my life. Because I do have a tendency, and it's a tendency I've had for some time, to be easily discouraged when stuff doesn't show up, to the point where I give up asking. And giving up asking, of course, that doesn't really help you at all. So I was trying to get myself back into the frame of, it's okay to ask. It's okay to put out there, I want this really, really big result, or these really, really big results. And I don't have to be really good at expressing them yet. I don't have to be really good at mapping them all out. I just have to start talking about them in my own context, and just stay focused there and get excited about doing that. So that's what I started doing today. And it is a different feeling. It's a different feeling because now it's just about me, which Sounds
Right.
very egotistical, but it's not intended to be egotistical. It's intended to be, hey, I'm in charge of my own life. If I'm going to be in charge, then it's about time I take charge.
Well, and it's such a relevant piece because we're told not to be selfish, and we're told uh, all these rules, and we somehow when we're asked to do something that requires us to do work on ourselves, there's a resistance piece in that based on I don't want to be selfish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You see,
Well, we have a lot of training on that.
That because yeah, and the idea that one of the best things that for me to be the person for me to be the best dad I can be, for me to be the best friend I can be, for me to be the best life coach that I can be, I have to be this amazing. I have to do this amazing work for me. I am cheating other people when I don't do my work. I'm cheating the universe when I don't do it. That is not selfish. That is self-care is never selfish. If at all costs, and I still do other things for other people, but you have to take care of yourself, placing yourself first. This martyr concept that we always have to put everybody else first is the most ineffective way of thinking possible. When I use this all the time with codependent mothers, especially. You're on the airplane, they're giving you instructions, the masks are going to come down, you put it on yourself, then you put it on the kid. This is not being selfish to put the mask on you first. If you're unconscious, the kid's in bad shape. So you need to be okay. He or she can go unconscious for a second and then get that mask on, but you need to have your facilities, all your faculties in place.
So, yeah, talk a little bit more about this, because I love the term you use, that you're cheating if you aren't looking out for yourself. Why cheating? That's an interesting choice of words.
Well, in my, again, getting into, avoiding those rabbit holes at all costs here, but getting into what I believe is each of us have this unique set of abilities, and they're as unique as our fingerprints. They're incredible. All these abilities we've been given, and I don't know the origins, and I'm not going to get into all that piece, but I do know that we're a piece of the pretty much like the big oak tree that's in my backyard. It breathes out. It breathes out every single thing that I need. I mean, the oxygen, the components of oxygen that I need to breathe in. That's wonderful. I'm glad that tree exists. Now, ironically, what I breathe out is what that tree needs to breathe in. Now, that's pretty cool, right? That's a nice
cool. Yeah.
synergy.
Right.
So if the trees quit producing oxygen, they're really cheating us.
Ah. So you're suggesting
and
that,
it's the same.
when we're not in our own zone, when we're not doing what's good for us, we're actually cheating others, is what you're suggesting.
Yes, and the universe, and that's the point. I really believe that being fulfilled, doing these next steps, it actually gets us. Everyone benefits when we're healthy. There was a time in the middle of my addictive behavior that I truly. I would have been better off, and I say this in not a negative way, but the world would have been better off without Joel in it back in the day. I was not productive. I was not doing self-care. That's when I was selfish, by not doing any self-care, by living in an addiction. I was antisocial. I was stealing. That's selfish. I was incredibly selfish at that. When I started doing my self-care, and I started going to do, really take care of myself, I say this without arrogance, the world is better off with me in it now. I have done things now that, wow, because I haven't been selfish, I am an asset. And the same thing going on, when you're doing your work, you're allowing your unique set of skills to be, thank goodness not everybody is a rocket scientist. I have one of my clients is a true nuclear engineer rocket scientist, okay? And one of the most brilliant people literally to walk the planet. And that is not an exaggeration. But yet common sense. Not telling this all the time, so he doesn't. He's lacking. He doesn't get sarcasm. He doesn't. So it's funny because while you have this just incredible genius guy that can tell you an equation of nuclear fission by just saying it, which I don't even understand what the words are. He doesn't get sarcasm. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
So he has and thank goodness we have his skill set there. I can no more. I would blow the entire planet up doing what he did. He was explaining to me what a super collider is and what it does, and I was like, what? And he was explaining it, and he said, okay, I'll dumb it down. Well, the dumb it down still didn't understand it. But I am passionate about believing every single kid I work with, every single person I work with, I help them see that their unique skill set is not just their unique skill set, but you're stealing from society when you don't allow us to benefit from your skill set. When Einstein said, if you judge a fish's ability by intelligence by its ability to climb a tree, it would appear to be really stupid. Well, that's true. It can't climb a tree, but a tree, a bear can't swim like a fish either. That's so right. If you look at we all have that. And once you get in tune with it, imagine a world where everybody was operating at optimal capacity with their unique skill sets. Wow.
That's an interesting perspective and an interesting way of looking at it, particularly your definition of selfish, as you outlined anecdotally, that if you are taking care of yourself, you're not selfish. If you are abandoning care of yourself, you're selfish. That I had not heard that one before.
Well, if you go on the premise that we have a point and reason to be here and that we have these things, why, if I go work for an organization and let's say my skill set is the ability to enter a lot of data into a computer, at 200 strokes per minute or one of those crazy kind of things. Well, if I go in and say, I'm only going to do 50 strokes a minute. Well, they didn't hire you to do 50 strokes a minute. They hired you to do 200. So you're not benefiting that. You're not part of what is you're not part of the team. One of the things that I believe that happens in government agencies is, when there's a snowstorm, a government agency, any business that's the government, we had a little snow, we're going to shut down for the day. Well, when Joel Elston Life Coaching is open, short of a nuclear explosion, we're open. Because being in business for myself, if I don't work, I don't get money. I don't do that. Not that it's all about money, but you know what I mean by that. I need to be there, and my clients know, hey, if the roads are passable, we'll be there. And that concept is because I'm coming from a place of service of where I'm at. My clients need me. Whereas the government, they'll hire 50 people to do one job because they have the mindset that it's get by a little as possible. That's why it's such an inefficient system. Whereas individual private stuff is let's be as efficient as possible. And so using the efficiency of that model of in the law of attraction, I want to attract happiness and abundance, and I do that through fulfilling me. When and taking care of me. When I went to work for my father in the insurance agency many years ago, this is before computers were doing rate calculations, and you literally had to pull up rates by looking at each individual category, following it in the manual, adding it together, adding the policy fee, doing all this. Well, I have really, really bad ADHD, or really good ADHD, depending on your perspective. And at the time, I did not there is probably not a worse job for me than that job.
I can see that, yeah.
But because that was a family business, it was assumed I was going to go in there. So I went into that job in a miserable state of mind. I did like money. I did like driving nice cars. I did like the image of what I had. But the job itself was so not me. Well, I was good at the sales piece, but I was horrible at the other piece of which is 70% of the job is the calculations and the paperwork. I was terrible at that. Mm-hmm. So by forcing myself into I was not nearly as effective as I could have been. but or maybe I couldn't have been, but I because the job didn't match me. But in my career now, I'm able to do the things that match my skill set. So now my success is I'm very successful. I have, there's probably not a week or two that goes by that I don't get a job offer somewhere around the country to run a treatment center or do something along those lines.
Oh, yeah.
It's I love that. I don't take the jobs. I love what I'm doing, but I'm living in my skill set. I'm living in what I believe. So I do self-care. I go to the gym every day. I do my meditations. I'm constantly studying law of attraction, metaphysical type stuff. That's stuff that just excites me. I get up every day excited about my life. So I'm a more productive person within that, and the universe and society. And it sounds like I'm being grandiose here. Benefits from me doing that, as everybody else that's living that way.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it sounds to me like you're saying that the skill set, if we're working largely within that skill set, that's the route to happiness. And I have to raise a question about that, because I, for the longest time, was doing stuff that was right in my skill set, but I didn't enjoy it, and I wasn't happy doing it. So that's why I wonder, is it really about being in the skill set?
Well, let me challenge that concept. Just because you're good at something doesn't necessarily mean that's your skill set. And your skill set is what really what gets you excited. I mean, I can't imagine. There are some people that, like my friend that does the nuclear equation stuff. He loves that. He sees mathematical equations in his head. That's exciting to him. Now, he has other things he can do, but that's the thing. That's his skill set. When I say skill set, then we have to break down what that is. Just because, I have an incredible, this one I love telling. One of the things, and I don't know why the universe decided to give me this talent, but I am the world's best whack-a-mole player.
Okay.
I am. I have never been defeated at whack-a-mole. I go. It's ridiculous. I get a perfect score on whack-a-mole. I'm great at. For whatever reason, I'm the best whack-a-mole player of all time. Now, unfortunately, the professional whack-a-mole tour doesn't pay well.
That's true.
So even though I'm good at that, I'm not passionate about the whack-a-mole world. It is something I can do. What I think a lot of people mistake, because I can do something or I have a knowledge, that's my skill set, and maybe by standards that's what it is. But I have a skill set value of what drives me, what gets me up, what do I love, what am I great at, and what am I passionate about? Where does that collide? Where does that axis cross of what I'm great at and what I love? That's your skill set in my mind.
So in other words, love has to be a big part of it.
Of course. And when I'm doing aptitude tests, a lot of times I'll get the 26-year-old kid, failed out of college, that's sort of a failure at launch type thing. And I have a formula that say, here's all the things that you show you have abilities in. I use the word abilities. Here's where you show abilities. Here's the things that you report that you're passionate about. And we try to draw a chart of, here's what I'm passionate about. Here's what my skill set is, or my abilities are. And so let's call this I call it the prime skill set. It's what we're seeking. It is, interestingly, when I was a child, I took an aptitude test in 5th grade. I'll never forget this. It's funny how you remember things. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that came up was, so you will be someone who is either a preacher or a clergy or help people. Well, in 5th grade, I was expecting that to be professional football player or anything but that. I was going, oh my God, there's no way that would ever, I would never be that.
Yeah.
And I laughed at it thinking it had no value. Well, I mean, not that I'm a preacher, but I have well, technically I am on one level, but it is that I do have that. My aptitude test showed that a long time ago. Now my passion is now that I have an understanding of where my passion lies. So the intersection of my passion and my abilities is the skill set that I seek.
It's funny too that you mentioned preaching, because my father always believed that I should be a preacher, that I should be a minister, which again was the last thing that I had in mind. And indeed, when it comes to the podcast, it's the one thing I'm trying to avoid doing. And yet, to some extent, I mean, just because of what we talk about, the nature of it has sort of a preachy element to it. But I'm constantly trying to remove that preachy element, because I don't like preaching. I don't like listening to preaching. I don't like being a part of it.
Well, again, and again, this is one of those things that we do. Preaching can have 50 different connotations attached to it.
True,
like me and I'm very much into definitions of words and what I believe. Preaching has the sound of I am talking at you, exactly. and you will, I'm being directive, or sharing your experience, or trying to share what I try to bring what my experience is for other people to see it. I don't tell anyone. I don't go and tell anyone that I work with. I don't even tell my son, unless it's obviously there's danger attached. I don't tell anyone what to do. I always ask them, what do you think? Where you're at? What's your instincts telling you? I want them to develop what they should do. Preaching is telling people you must believe a certain way. And because I had such a poor, so I have such a negative view of traditional religion in so many ways, and the concept of how they just sort of randomly pick crazy stuff and make it law. I'm very careful about not wanting to preach. I don't want to do that. I do, however, want to share my experience. I do want to give my discoveries. When people are listening to our podcast, in my mind, or they come to see me as a life coach, they're saying, I want you to share with me. They've sought us out. I'm interested in what you have to say and how it worked for you. They're not interested in me telling them. Well, some of them may be interested in me telling them what to do, but I don't do that. And on this show, I always try to say, first of all, I'm open every day to new thought, new ideas. I love to hear different opinions. I love that. And I love to share, here's what I feel. Nobody out there should understand what I'm saying. This is what you have to do. If you want the law of attraction to work, here's what worked for me. And that's what I think you and I do on this show. And I assume the other co-hosts do that as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, none of us are preachers in the sense of the way you were defining it. And I agree with you. That's exactly the kind of thing I want to avoid, is that kind of I am here to tell you what to do. I am here to tell you what the best life is, and you must listen to me as the authority. That just take me to the nearest bathroom. I need to throw up. But
because I don't think that it would be. I would be arrogant in saying I know how to fix your life. That doesn't work. No. I may have an opinion of what may work in your life, but I haven't walked in your shoes. I can't tell you what will or won't work. I can tell you what worked for me, and hopefully it applies to you, but I can't go in there and direct you in any other way.
So let's tie it back to the concept of happiness, because we're trying to identify how do we pick what it is that makes us happy in life, and how do we incorporate that into our lives. So obviously we don't want to be preachers. What do we want to be?
Well, and I think within that, happiness again becomes an individual thing. What makes you happy? It is an individual thing. Like we started talking earlier, when people, everybody's really capable of saying what they don't want. That's
we're good at that.
I don't want that.
We're experts at that.
Yeah. However, one of the things that just really sort of gets me really, really excited is when people can start to identify what they really do want, what would make you happy. I love, me and I work out. I'm very much into, along with my law of attraction stuff, I'm into holistic medicine. I believe the body heals itself. Those are things that I love. So I'm happy learning. I love to learn. I love to have deep conversations like you and I have every week. That's I love that. Mm-hmm. I don't enjoy having conversations with people who have preconceived issues or ideas that don't move the agenda forward, move our life forward, move what we believe forward. I don't like getting stuck into the negative. One of my experiments that we'll get to, maybe we can circle back to, but about me not watching the news. Well, I've now moved that to, I don't even watch TV anymore.
Yeah,
So
you told me that. That's great.
Yeah, I've said, because what makes me happy is me discovering. I don't need anyone else telling me what the facts are, because I realize that any reporting of facts is done through a lens of their perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And so what makes me happy is my self-discovery, my understanding how this all works. And I feel driven to investigate this and experience. And I've evolved quite a bit since we first started talking in my understanding of the law of attraction.
Mm.
It's evolved. I mean, the basic stuff has been there, but some of these other ideas and just the depth of where it's gone. I jokingly say we all started The Secret, and then we end up reading Seth Speaks.
Yeah, right.
And there's a big leap between the two.
Oh yeah, real big leap, no doubt about it. I'm also remembering back to the earliest days of the podcast. Actually, the very earliest days. I had to go through and renumber the podcast because a new thing that Apple is doing with the podcast within the iTunes store. They want each individual episode to have a number. So I went back to the beginning, and I found that the episode where I interviewed you for the first time, that was episode 12. So we did the 12th episode together. And then about, what was it, like a year and a half, 2 years later, you came on board regularly as my co-host. And from that point on, I was noticing that I was still in the range of trying to figure out what does make me happy, and indeed what kind of career would make me happy, what kind of work would make me happy, because I had been doing all these things over the years that I had the ability to do, to use your words, but I wasn't enjoying it and I wasn't loving it, and so nothing was actually succeeding. One of the things that I did during that time, and I kind of did it semi-intentionally, but mostly I would say it was unintentionally, is I gave up on the idea that I knew what it was. Because I couldn't find it. I couldn't find what I would love to do that could actually produce an income, that could actually produce a satisfying life. And the closest I came to was I enjoyed doing the podcast. I had no idea how to turn that into anything. And so I kind of threw it out there a number of times, doing the show with you. I would like to know what it is that I enjoy doing that can actually produce an income and make me feel like I'm really contributing and all that kind of stuff. And what has emerged out of that is a recognition that the podcast is actually one of my best vehicles for that. But that came afterward.
Yes.
And my point is, I had to put out the request first and then get the information back. I couldn't just discover it on my own. And I think it's an important thing to remember. We are not responsible for coming up with on our own what it is that jazzes us. Sometimes we just don't know. Sometimes we just can't figure it out. And yes, we can take steps. I'll try this, I'll try this, I'll try this, I'll try this, I'll try this. But what my experience taught me is we're actually better off just feeling what it would be like to have that happy thing and then ask the universe, show me what would make me happy. Because then you get the much more direct answer that way. Even though that seems counterintuitive, that's what happens.
Well, here is where you're going with that, and where you're seeing. I look at it when you made these discoveries, the podcast, and I've always believed that this will turn into a traditional, some more traditional form of radio show down the road. I really believe this is going to be picked up at some point. And I think that'll be a thing, but also coming from that, you're about to be a published author. You're about to be a publisher of a chicken soup for the soul kind of book. Mm-hmm. Those are things that came out of all. It's so easy to look in the rearview mirror and see your evolution in this.
Right.
And that's what you discovered. This book has no reason not to be a very, very successful type book, and it can be wildly, be a bestseller. And that might be the way that gets somebody to notice. How many people have we had listen to the podcast? I haven't heard an updated number lately.
Overall, the number of plays, we just exceeded 38,000 within the last day or two. So since November 2016, 38,000.
So 38,000 people have listened, and once they listen, they tend to listen a lot.
38,000 plays. That's 38,000 plays. So
Yes,
and it
yes,
averages out to like over that whole period, it's like an average of 30 plays per listener.
yeah. So that's an amazing number to me. And
It is. In fact,
when you look at it, and
last month that number
when,
was 45. Believe it or not, 45 plays per listener last month.
right. That's just
It's mind
awesome.
blowing. I mean,
And so what you're hearing is people are getting into it, and they're enjoying it,
Yeah.
and they're loving it.
Yeah, it's true.
And this is what you brought this to the table, and this is what you keep bringing. And the more your resistance goes down, the more this gets better. I mean, it really is a going forward kind of momentum that you have now, that you have done by reducing your resistance, by actually finding your real skill set in what you were meant to do. Yes, you can do Google silly or whatever that stuff is. You can do that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I can do all that.
But
stuff.
you don't like. Yeah, you don't like that. So,
Nah, it's not fun.
While that is an ability, it's not really the skill set that makes you get up every morning.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, and it's taken me all these years to find it, but I'm glad I found it. I guess my point is I'm glad that I finally gave up on trying to find it myself, because I wasn't getting anywhere that way, and instead asked for help.
Right.
Because it was the asking for help that brought the answers.
Yes. So I think this is a very logical progression for you, and I think that the fact that this is, to me, there's a story within the story within the story here. We as we've evolved, there's a story just of your own personal evolution through this. Of
Sure.
You set out to do this to help other people understand the law of attraction, and you ended up understanding it even more. And it changed your life by practicing what you were talking about every week, and now every day, in a very good way. So I just those are examples of being happy. You found something that you love to do, and you're great at, and you surrounded yourself with other people that are great at it as well, and you found this great mix of what you're looking for. That's the point. What everybody asks themselves, truly what makes you happy. And you can't just say, well, I want a lot of money and the beach house. Okay, well, first of all, that has no chance of making you happy. When you're happy, all that other stuff can sit there and that can come to you, and that will come to you. But the idea that being the pathway to happiness is what most people get stuck on. When I reach a certain point, I will become happy. That never works. When you realize I need to be happy first, and then I can reach whatever point I want to reach from a place of happiness.
Which is a tough concept.
And it's so, beg your pardon?
That's a very tough concept. The idea that I have to be
really
happy
is.
first. That's for most of us, that's counterintuitive. Although there's lots of information to show that really is the sequence, but it just doesn't feel right.
Well, it also goes against every single thing that we've ever been taught.
Right.
It's the idea that it's just, well, you got to work your entire life to retire, and then you can relax and be happy. Well, I look at it this way. One of my friends is a financial planner who keeps saying, we really need to get your retirement stuff in line. I keep saying, why do you keep saying that? I'm not going to retire. I don't want to. What am I going to retire from? There is no retirement. And the idea that I don't ever want to stop doing what I'm doing. I'm not looking for a cutoff point. It's the idea of I found what I love. There's zero reason to stop. You see that within ourselves of the concept of happiness as a destination is what sold to us for years, for generations, versus the understanding that happiness exists already. And then that actually becomes it's sort of the quantum or the black hole to happiness. It's sort of the wormhole to happiness. You bypass all the other stuff, or to success is becoming happy first, and then success automatically comes your way. You figured out by this time next year, it's the 12th of April right now. Mm-hmm. By this time next year, I really believe you're going to say, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe how all this has come together." It just is amazing, and I see that in my life. I wake up every day going, the path here seems just implausible. It doesn't seem possible, but yet here we are.
You know, when you talked about retirement there, and you gave that funny example, it occurred to me why it is that retirement is a part of our lexicon, why it's a part of our culture. It's because we were taught that you had to go to work even if you didn't enjoy what you were doing, especially if you didn't enjoy what you were doing, just to bring home the money with the reward that you'd be able to retire after age 65 and enjoy the fruits of your labor. In other words, it was a way of justifying not being happy in your work.
Yeah.
I mean, that's mind-blowing.
That's such a relevant point because it also paints the job as, it also puts the image out there. Okay, you got a crappy job. You just got to hang on, and then you'll get money when you put in 30 years or 20 years or whatever the number is.
Right.
And it just reinforces that. There's a gentleman that I work with. He drives for Coca-Cola. He stocks Coca-Cola shelves and in grocery stores. And he hated his job, but it's very good money. He does very well at it.
Yeah.
So when we started talking, he said, "Well, I only have 9 more years of lugging Coca-Cola in the stores." And I'm like, "Oh my God!" I said, "I just got a little nauseous when you said that." And he's like, "Why?" He said, I said, "Because that's how you're looking at your life." I said, "Let's look at what your job brings you. You live in a nice home. You're able to take nice vacations. You take excellent care of your family. The job provides you with, you have, while it is tedious at times, you also aren't stuck behind a desk." And I go through all the positives of the job. And he's like, "Well, yeah, I guess when you look at it that way, he said they are very lenient. If I got to go to he said, I sort of make my own schedule. If my son needs a conference, I can get my route done later in the day." And I didn't have him tell me all the great things about his job. And trust me, there were far more great things than bad things. And so I said, why do you have this negative, why don't you? And he's like, "Oh my gosh, I see why that's sabotaging me. I see it." So he changed his perspective about the job. Well, about a month and a half after that, he'd been with his company a while. He's been with Coca-Cola for a while. They actually called him in and said, "We don't know exactly what's different about you or what you're doing differently, but your productivity is almost doubled. Your attitude, everybody just reports just what a great coworker you are." He ended up getting a raise and a promotion as supervisor over the entire area.
Wow.
And he said, "I just see it so differently now because I was conditioned as, like Monday mornings, you often will see me post on Facebook, Monday's my favorite day of the week. Everybody, oh, here comes Monday." Oh my God. Well, yeah, it's certainly going to be a terrible Monday now, not because it's Monday, it's because your anticipation of Monday is there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what you expect it to be. You've already labeled it. When you label your job as a negative and you got to get up every day and go to it, there is zero chance you're going to be happy within that. But if you look at the fact that your job provides these things for you, and if you don't like it, let's look for something else. But in the meantime, let's make this job, let's look at the benefits of this job. I wouldn't be doing it if there weren't benefits.
Yeah. That's a great story, too, the guy with the soda route, who was stocking the shelves. And just the sequence of events is so clear. He changed his perspective, which improved his attitude tremendously, made him feel a whole lot better about what he was doing, which, unbeknownst to him, doubled his productivity, which led to him getting a promotion and a pay raise. That's quite a sequence.
Yes. And nothing changed but his attitude. Nothing.
Well, his perspective.
And that's the important piece.
The perspective changed, and that changed the attitude.
Yeah, everything changed. He changed, but when I say nothing but his attitude and perspective, which when I say that, that's everything.
It is everything. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that's the piece that I very, very much want to just reiterate with our audience is happiness is not a destination. Happiness already exists. your $1 million answer is keying into your success and your happiness right now, and then the rest will automatically follow. So that happiness is not a quantifiable topic that's universal because it is individual. What your happiness may be is just, oh my God, it's nothing I can even remotely do.
Mm-hmm.
Or my happiness is other people look at me and go, ugh, why do you do that?
Yeah,
I
right.
love it. That's why I do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This is a really good discussion we're having because we don't often talk about the happiness portion, even though every day this is about the daily dose of happy. In fact, when you mentioned that you post on Facebook every Monday morning, every Monday when Tom Wells and I start the week off with the morning podcast, it's always welcome to your first daily dose of happy for Monday. And isn't Monday such a wonderful day? It's the first day of this wonderful week. Again, not the way it's normally presented, but the same kind of idea behind it because we want the week to be good. So we want the day to be good. So we start off with the attitude that it's going to be a good day. I loved also the fact that your client there, your friend who was the Coke delivery guy, he was able to find so many things that he loved about his job that he wasn't aware of. I wonder how often we do that to ourselves. I wonder how often we cut ourselves off from the stuff that we love within what we're already doing, and therefore we're not even aware of it.
I think that we could do an entire show on that. There's so much out there because we get conditioned until, it's the negative that can exist in the thought process is so powerful, but the positive is so much more powerful when you look at it. Our jobs, our careers, our life, they bring a lot to the table. They're not irrelevant. They do bring a lot to the table, and by when that it's not just jobs, anything in your world. One of the things that Justin will do that I'm working on with him, my son Justin, is we'll ride by this really, really, like we live around our neighborhood, some massive homes, these mansions almost. And can we buy that? Can we buy that? I go, son, we have a beautiful home. We have a great neighborhood. I don't want a bigger yard. I don't want a bigger house. It's just more stuff to mess up. And I'm trying to get him to understand we have everything. By wanting more, you're creating that feeling of lack, and we're in control of that. Same with our job. Same with, I have the perfect job for me. I love it. Does that mean I will always do this exact same thing forever? I don't know. It may change. We may be doing full-time radio this time next year. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But in the meantime, I could not have a better gig going on in my world. It's perfect for me. And I get up every day believing that. And I have seems like I have a limitless number of clients. I have all I need. I make plenty of money. I love what I do. Doesn't get any better than that, Walt.
Yeah, no, that is like really great. That's fantastic. That is the ultimate place to build from, because when you're enjoying what you're doing that much, well, no wonder so much good stuff's been happening. I mean, you've had a really active life over the last few years alone. All these changes that have gone on, and they've all taken you to better and better places. So clearly, staying in that happy place has been absolutely wonderful for you.
Absolutely. It's been great. This has been a wonderful show. I love all our shows, but today was particularly uplifting.
It feels good, doesn't it, to talk about a happy thing for a change? Because you're right, we do tend to talk about the difficult stuff because that's what we're all used to, and that's how we kind of enter into conversations about this kind of thing. But just talking about the fun stuff and the happy stuff, that just feels so good. So thanks for taking the time to do it with me. By the way, before we leave everybody behind here, I always want to make sure I do this, and I didn't do this enough with you in the past, so I want to make sure I get it in a few times. Somebody wants to reach out to you. Somebody wants your help because you have a really great, unique perspective on how to help people who are looking to get unstuck on things. How do they reach out to you?
Well, my website is joelelston.com. My email address is joelelston@gmail. You can reach me through LOA Today's website. We have, I'm available for phone sessions. I do about everything you can imagine. Do consulting, so I'm available. If I can't help you, I can always find somebody that can. I have a great referral network as well.
All right, that sounds good. Joel, thanks so much. I'm glad you're back, and I can't wait to do it again next week.
It's great to talk to you, my friend.
All right. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.